So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Nobel Talk. My name is Maria Ana, a student at Technic, and I'm speaking on behalf of AEIST, Students' Union of Institute Superior Technic, that organized this event in collaboration with the PhD Student Club. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today on World Engineering Day for this unique opportunity to hear from an interactive Professor Dan Shechtman, 2011 Nobel Prize winner in chemistry. Before starting, I would like to thank Professor Dan for his time and availability to participate and accepting to speak at this event. We are very delighted to have you here with us and glad that you gave us the chance to expand our knowledge on many topics of physics, chemistry, and engineering. This is a unique opportunity for many of us to meet a Nobel Prize winner like you. So our distinguished guest for this Nobel Talk is Daniel Shechtman, who is an Israeli chemist and engineering award with the 2011 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his discovery of quasicrystals, a type of crystal in which the atoms are arranged in a pattern that follows mathematical rules, but without the pattern ever repeating itself. Dan Shechtman is the Philip Tobias Professor of Material Science at the Technion, Israel Institute of Technology, an associate of the US Department of Energy's Ames Laboratory, and Professor of Material Science at Iowa State University. Today, we are very honored to have the opportunity to hear from Professor Dan about his academic and scientific career. So this way, I would like to ask you to talk a little bit more in detail about your whole academic and scientific journey.
Okay, Maria Ana, please adjust your cursor that I can see all your face, not only the eyes. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much for this introduction. I would like to add one more point to the introduction, which is the most important point. And the most important point is that I have 12 grandchildren, 4 children, 1 wife. And this is important.
Yeah.
Now, as far as my scientific career, since I was a young child, I was very interested in the nature around me. And when I was about 7 years old, my grandfather bought me a present. It was a magnifying glass. And I was walking in the fields near my home, looking at everything small. Insects, flowers, everything small. And I fell in love with the world of small things. Later on, when I was young, I read many books, and one of the books affected my career. The book is by Jules Verne, the French author. Some of you know him. And the book is called Mystery Island. In the book, there is a group of 5 people who are stranded on an island. The island has everything, but no people. And they create life, modern in the time of Jules Verne. And the leader is an engineer. And that engineer could make and do everything. And I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be able to make everything. And this is why, after my military service, I went to the Technion. Technion is a school for engineers and scientists in Haifa, in Israel, to study mechanical engineering. I wanted to become a mechanical engineer. And 4 years later, I graduated, and I was a proud certificated mechanical engineer from the Technion. But that year was deep recession in the country, and I could not find a job. I was already married, and I had some financial responsibility. So I said, well, I will continue for my master's degree and get some money as a teaching assistant. And in 2 years, I will find a job. And indeed, in 2 years after my master's degree, I did find a job. But during these 2 years of my master's studies, I fell in love with science. I wanted to become an engineer and became an engineer. But in these 2 years, I fell in love with science and decided to continue for my PhD in materials science. My expertise, and this is an important point for the discussion later, was transmission electron microscopy. Again, looking at small things, the world of small things, which I fell in love with. And I became an expert in transmission electron microscopy, analyzing structure and defects in materials, mainly metals. 4 years later, I went for a postdoc in the United States, and I spent 3 years in my postdoc, and then I started to look for a job in Israel. I did not want to stay in the United States. I did not want to live in the United States, although they asked me to stay and they promised a fantastic job. I said, no, I want to live in my own country. And the Technion, my alma mater, my school, offered me a position, and I came back to the Technion. And ever since then, I was there, again, doing transmission electron microscopy of the structure of matter, mainly metals. In my first sabbatical, you know, they allow professors to go abroad for a year or two for a sabbatical. And I went in the year 1981, I went on sabbatical to the United States again, to laboratories that at the time was called NBS, National Bureau of Standards. It is in Maryland, north of Washington, DC. And there, again, I did a lot of electron microscopy. And then several months after my arrival, I made a discovery of quasicrystals. And from there on, that was my main study. Not the only one. I did a lot of studies on different subjects, published many papers, but this was the main stream. And very soon, it became a subject in which thousands of people around the world were working on, although it met very sharp opposition. And the main opposition came from a two-time Nobel laureate, Professor Linus Pauling, an American, who was the father of the American Chemical Society, very famous scientist and admired by millions of Americans, and he was my rival. He said, there are no quasi-crystals, just quasi-scientists. And the models that we proposed, he said, no, no, no. And he fought us from 1984 till his death. That was more than 20 years in which he rejected the work that I did, but then many, many followers. But he was a great leader, and so he had many followers. But after his death, opposition died with him, and that was the end of that. I received quite a few prizes for my work. And of course, I don't know if you know, but the last prize you can ever get is the Nobel Prize. After the Nobel Prize, no more prizes. So it's a good idea to get all the prizes before the Nobel, because after Nobel, that's it. 2011, I received a Nobel, and before that, I received many other important scientific prizes. That is my story. I am now retired from the Technion, but I still have an office and I have a couple of projects there, but less activity than before, and I don't take new students anymore. So that's about the story of my life, and I'll be happy to hear your question. And if I don't understand, then Mariana can say it for me again so that I can understand what you say. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for this great talk and for sharing these bits of your research and career with our students. This interview will now begin with general questions concerning your research path, your academic and scientific life. So as we know, the research path, as you talked before, can be full of obstacles and failures. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about your struggles during this journey, like as you talked about Linus Pauling and your I don't know if you can talk a little bit more about that and how difficult it was in the beginning for you to deal with these situations. And so it led afterwards to this recognition as a Nobel Prize, so it's a good thing.
A little bit more about difficulties. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, during my lifetime, I met quite a few people who were harming me for no reason at all. Linus Pauling had his own idea. That was fair enough. He was wrong, but he spoke science. Some people were against me without any reason, and sometimes it is unpleasant when people are against you. You know, I think it was Mark Twain who said that, I'll try to remember it and quote it, there are only a few things, no, I forget the quotation, forget it. So, but you know, I'm a hardy person, and I can, if I am convinced that I'm correct, I stand tall. I check myself time and again. I am the worst critic of myself. And when I find something interesting, I check myself many, many times until I'm absolutely sure that I'm correct. Now, if somebody says, no, 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 I'm listening. But telling me that it cannot be because it's not in the books, hey, we are here to make progress in science. If you stick only to what's in the books, better be a priest or a rabbi or a Qadi, Muslim Qadi. Stick to the books, wonderful. But this is science. We want to write the new books. So that's not a good reason to say it's not in the books and therefore it cannot be. And many people said it, you know, they said it cannot be, it's not in the books. This is nonsense. We have to make progress in science. If you find something that is not in the books, wonderful, this is the way to do it. But make sure that you are correct.
Okay, thank you. Now I would like to ask how could the general public relate to your discovery in their daily lives, and how could these findings affect our lives?
Okay.
So I don't know if you can hear me well, but I was just wondering if how can your discovery affect our daily lives, in how can quasi-crystals affect our daily lives, and what did it affect our lives and improve it?
Okay. Mariana, please adjust your camera. Put
Sorry.
yourself in the center. Yes. It's adjusting yourself. You know, I can give you a few advices from an old scientist, and maybe we can make progress from there. But by the way, we don't have to talk about science only. If you want to talk about economics, if you want to talk about culture, if you want to talk about education, I am very active in all these fields. But advices. My advice, I don't know if you are master students or PhD students or first degree students, Mariana?
I am a master student.
Okay, and all the rest are also master students? Some
are, but
okay.
The most matter. Of it, yeah.
Doesn't matter. So my advice is following. If you want to, those of you who are doing higher degrees, surely you want to succeed in your profession, whatever it is, chemistry, physics, mathematics, maybe history, I don't know. My advice is the following. If you want to succeed in the future, find a subject that you like and become an expert in it. Try to be number one, whatever you like, okay? If you like mathematics, find a subject in mathematics. You like chemistry, physics, biology, very important. Find a subject and become an expert. Become number one in your class, number one in your school. And today you can do it because information is available. It is available on the internet. Your professors will talk to you gladly. So become an expert. And you have to have general knowledge of science. You have to know enough mathematics, enough physics, enough chemistry, regardless of what you want to be an excellent in. And then I promise you, if you have a broad knowledge of science and you're an expert in one subject, you will have a wonderful career. You have to know science, basic science, and become an expert in a field that you like. That's it. Very simple.
Now, as you were talking about economics and culture, I would like to ask if you have anything to say about your view on those fields, so we can see other perspectives as you want. Okay. If you are interested in that.
You know, I visited Portugal several times, and as a tourist, it's a wonderful place. I like Portugal very much, and also my children go there on their own to visit Portugal. Wonderful country. I hope that some of you will come to visit Israel. We have a long history, but Israel is a relatively new country based on ancient Jewish people. And Portugal has several problems. The number of people in Portugal is more or less similar to the number of people in Israel. You are approaching 9 million, we are approaching 10 million, just about the same. But you are not productive enough. Your GDP per capita is half of that of Israel. Israel GDP per capita is like Europe, England, France, Germany, same number. We are $43,000 per capita, GDP per capita. You are 22, 23. Something is wrong there, and what's wrong is inefficiency. You are not productive enough. That has to do, I think, of course, with the culture. You know, I like Portuguese people. I like the people very much, as much as I like Brazilian people, mostly because of the Portuguese language. I don't speak Portuguese, but it sounds so lovely and, happy and so on. And as I said, I like your country very much as a visitor. But living in Portugal is a different issue. And you are one of the poorest countries in Europe. It shouldn't be like that. It should not be like that. You are an ancient civilization. You ruled part of the world in your past. Portugal and Spain were rulers. You sent delegation to America. You did a lot, and you contributed. This has to change, and it has to change in two ways, in my opinion. My little opinion about economics. But I follow the economy of many countries, including Portugal. So I say the following. Number one, education. Every country should invest a lot, the most in education, good education, basic education, culture, but science. A lot of science, mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology. Your Ministry of Education should dedicate a lot to these subjects, invent new programs, and so on. Number two, start teaching science early. How early? Kindergarten. I open programs in Israel to teach science in kindergartens, real science. No flying dolls and talking rabbits, no, real science. And there's this kindergarten, children aged 5 to 6, they sit near a round table, laboratory coats, and the instructor performs experiments with them, and then make sure that they understood the experiments and understood the science. Kindergarten, start there, and continue in primary school, secondary school, and good universities. Of course, culture, of course, music. That gives taste to life. But life itself is given by the scientists and engineers. These are the people that create the economy. These are the people that create the good life. So education is number one. Number two, I don't know how to do it, but you have to increase your productivity. Every Portuguese person that works have to produce double what they produce now. Then you become Central Europe in GDP per capita. How to do it? I don't know. It has to do with culture, it has to do with management, and it has to do with no corruption. No corruption. This is unacceptable. There should be no corruption. And once you have good education, now if you have good education from kindergarten to universities, and if you work on people to produce more, it's not the fault of the people in most cases. Sometimes you don't invest in new equipment. They work on old equipment, and that's all they can produce. No, you have to invest. And the last thing is something I'm very active in, is entrepreneurship, technological entrepreneurship. Teach your young people. I hope your university can teach you how to open a new startup. I started such class 35 years ago at the Technion. It was the largest Technion class. It's called technological entrepreneurship. I taught students how to open a startup and succeed. And then we did study, like after 30 years of the class, we studied what happened to the graduates. The graduates are all engineers and scientists. And more than 10,000 engineers and scientists in Israel took my class. More than 10,000. My class, I started it and taught it. 25% of them were involved in startups. So Israel is now a startup nation. They start new companies, and many of these companies become unicorn. You know what unicorn is? I'll explain to those who don't know. Unicorn is a private company that's worth more than $1 billion, $1,000 million. Private company that's worth more than $1 billion. This is called a unicorn. In Israel, we have 100 of them. Huge number. And there's a lot of money flows into Israel, investments from foreign countries, because they seek the brains of the people here. Every large company in the world that you can name has a design and development center in Israel. Any company. Google, Microsoft, Mercedes-Benz, whatever you want, General Motors, any company has a design and development center in Israel, looking for the brains. This brings two things, money to the country, and it brings knowledge, because the people who work in these development centers know what's going to happen 5 years from now. They design for 5 years from now. They know they are at the top of the technology. And there are many, many of them. Many, large number of Technion graduates are working in these startups or opening a startup by themselves. And the government, that's important for your government, invests a lot in R&D. R&D is research and development. The government and also large companies in Israel invest a lot. 4.5% of the budget in Israel is invested in innovation. That's a huge number. If your government does this, there's a future, good economic future for Portugal. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I would like to ask you more specific questions regarding your discovery, as well as some particular details on your finding that led you to the Nobel Prize Award. And I would like to ask you, what are quasi-crystals in a more detailed way, and what are some of their applications in real life?
No, please ask, I did not hear. Please ask the question slowly.
Okay, sorry. So I would like to ask you, what are quasi-crystals and what are some of their applications in real life?
Okay. I call them quasi-periodic materials. Nickname is quasi-crystal. Quasi-periodic materials are metallic alloys that have a unique structure. What's unique about quasi-periodic materials is that the structure meaning the order of atoms in the material is not periodic. In all other materials is either the arrangement of atoms is ordered and periodic, or there is no order, like glass. But there is nothing else. In all the crystals, hundreds of thousands of crystals that have been studied since the start of crystallography, all of them were ordered and periodic. And I discovered a class of material that contains many, many alloys, more than 100, in which the structure is ordered. There is an order there. Therefore, it gives diffraction. But there is no periodicity. It has an order which is called quasi-periodicity. These are quasi-crystals. As far as applications, so in principle, when you discover a new class of material, then many people start to study their properties. And since there are more than 100 such alloys that are quasi-periodic, many people, thousands of people around the world study their properties. Magnetic properties, electrical properties, optical properties, heat transfer properties, you name it, that people study them. And if they discover something unique, they say, maybe we can use it. So what is unique? Some of these quasi-periodic materials are like Teflon. They have very low surface energy, and things don't stick to them, okay? Like a Teflon frying pan, okay? So you can use it as a coating on a frying pan. Another interesting property is that although they conduct electricity fairly well, they do not conduct heat fairly well. This is unique because usually heat conductivity and electric conductivity has to do with electron structure. But here it's different. So sometimes you need a material that has good electrical conductivity, but no heat conductivity. All right, that may be useful too. And so on and so forth. So or some magnetic properties should be interesting. Once you discover an interesting application, then you look for a field how you can use this property for applications. That's the story of the application.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Now I would like to ask, why was transmission electron microscope fundamental to your discovery, and if quasi-crystals could have been discovered using other techniques?
Okay, quasi-periodic materials could be discovered only by transmission electron microscopy, simply because the crystals in the materials were very small. And you can take X-ray diffraction from a bulk material which is quasi-periodic, but instead of points, you see circles, for those of you who know X-ray diffraction or any diffraction, or neutron diffraction, electron diffraction. But in order to see the very small crystals, you need transmission electron microscopy. And as I said, I was an expert in transmission electron microscopy. So this was the reason that I could do the discovery. The discovery was made, it was a very systematic work. I will explain it briefly. On my sabbatical at NBS, my sponsor was DARPA, and my proposal to be sponsored was development of new aluminum transition metal alloys for aerospace applications. And I did that, but as a scientist, and we scientists do that all the time, we received budget to do one thing and we do it, but we do more with the same budget. So this is what I did. And I will give you an example. One of the first alloys that I studied was aluminum manganese alloys. And I prepared alloy, and this was done by rapid solidification. I prepared alloys, aluminum 1% manganese, 2% manganese, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now, aluminum 1% manganese can be useful. 2%, yeah, can be useful. 3% maybe, 5%, maybe not. 10% useless. But I continued. And then when I reached aluminum 25% manganese, there it was. So you have to run wild. I'm not an engineer that works for a company that does exactly what my boss told me to do. No, I'm a scientist. I run wild. And this is good advice for those of you who want to become scientists. Run wild, do whatever you want. The discovery is not waiting on the main road. The main road is very crowded. There are thousands of people like you on the main road. No, choose side lane. Do something that people think is stupid. You do it, and then you'll find your discovery and your contribution to the world. Sometimes you discover new medications. Sometimes, biology today. I encourage everybody today to study biology, because biology is such an important and complex science, amazing. And look at the Nobel Prizes that people receive. Many of them receive it for biological technology. So I don't know if there are people among you that study biology, but you certainly do the right thing, in my opinion. But so is other subjects. But biology, is, in my opinion, is number one now. So that's that to your question.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm not sure, but I think that your discovery was made 70 years after the beginning of X-ray crystallography, right?
No, so ask me again, please.
Your discovery was made 70 years after the beginning of X-ray crystallography, and I would like to ask, why do you think it takes so many years for the quasicrystals to be discovered?
Okay, I discovered it in 1942. I was 41 when I made the discovery. The Nobel came 30 years later, but the discovery was made when I was relatively a young scientist, 41. Why did it take so long for quasicrystals to be discovered? That's a very good question. You had to do several things. Number one, it had to be discovered by electron microscopy. So you have to be an electron microscopist. So you may say, Mariana, there are thousands of good electron microscopists in the world. Why you? Okay, yes. There are many thousands of electron microscopies, but good electron microscopies, there are many, many less. Most people that use electron microscopy rely on technicians to run the microscope for them. Not me. I do everything myself, including specimen preparation. I do everything myself. I, as a scientist, work like a postdoc. I prepare everything myself. I don't trust anybody. I do everything myself. Yes, I had students. Yes, we published papers. But my best papers were the one I wrote myself. Going back to your question, the discovery had to be done by transmission electron microscopy and by a very good microscopist. This limits the number of people who could do it. Number two, you have to prepare alloys that are truly useless. I prepared alloys, as I explained before. Some of them were useful, very few were useful, potentially useful. And all the rest were useless, but very interesting. So you have to run wild, do things that other people don't even dream about doing. This is it. And number three, you have to pay attention to something unique. You can do electron microscopy. You can see something, you don't pay attention to it, goodbye, discovery gone. You have to pay attention. You have to look at the fine details and say, wow, this is interesting. This saying is the discovery. Wow, what's going on here? This is very interesting. Ah, you made a discovery. So, but you have to know that this is unique. You have to know that nobody has seen it before. This is why you have to read the literature. You have to be an expert in your field. Okay, I was. So not many people could do it. Be good electron microscopists, prepare alloys which were totally useless, and observe every detail in the transmission microscope. This combination waited for me.
Okay, thank you. Now I would like to ask if you have any special advice to give to students and young researchers.
To students in?
And young researchers.
In agriculture?
Yes.
Ah, you have students in agriculture there?
What?
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know if you understood me. I was asking if you have any advice to students and young researchers.
Young researchers?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. No, I gave my advice. I said the following, I will repeat it. If you want to become a successful scientist and researcher, you have to know enough about all the sciences, enough biology, enough physics, enough chemistry, enough mathematics, enough computers. You have to do some software. But the main thing is choose a subject that you like and try to be the best in it. The best in your class, the best in your school, the best in your country. Try to be number one in a subject that you like. That's it. And I promise you, if you know enough sciences, enough background, and you are an expert in a subject that you like, you'll have a wonderful scientific career.
Okay. Thank you. Now, as a final question, I would like to ask you how your life changed after the you won the Nobel Prize award.
Yes, my life changed dramatically. I started to, oops, I did something wrong. Let me bring you back. I don't see you on my screen. Okay. Okay, now I see you. My life changed dramatically. And then I had to make a decision. When somebody receives the Nobel Prize, that man or woman has to make a decision. And usually, if that person is young, they will continue to do research, enlarge their laboratory, and get more students and continue to contribute to science. But when I received the Nobel Prize, I was old. I was 70 years old when I received the Nobel Prize. And then enlarging my laboratory was not a good idea. I decided to educate the world, to bring to the people in the world my ideas about science, about education, about economy, about technological entrepreneurship. And many countries invited me to come and give talks to the students on different subjects. I can tell you that my latest lecture was in a meeting on agriculture in Dubai. I just came back a week ago. Agriculture, what do I have to do with agriculture? And I had to open that meeting. So I spoke about aquaculture. Aquaculture meaning culturing the sea. You know, for 1,200 years, we stopped becoming hunters and gatherers, and we become farmers. We produce food. We don't hunt and collect. We produce the food. But at sea, we're still hunters and gatherers. You know, in Portugal, you collect fish in the sea. But today, you can produce fish in cages and so on. So this was the subject. It's very interesting. Most of my talks, and I gave in normal years, not in COVID-19 years, but up until 2 years ago, I give talks in 30 cities every year. 30 cities every year around the world. I provided a lot of money for the people in the aviation. The airplanes company loved me very much. 30 cities every year, usually more than 30, 31, 32, but around this number. And in every city, it's not just one lecture. It's a lecture, and then a few meetings with students, and then a mayor wants to meet me, and then there is a hospitality celebration and big business. So that was my decision to not do science anymore, but to encourage other people, young people, to do science and to succeed in doing science, and also to open startups. If Portugal learns how to open more startups, you will do better economically.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. Now, I was just wondering, because I'm a biomedical engineering student and I'm in my master's, and I was wondering if you know what are the applications that quasi-crystals can have in biomedical engineering or other fields of engineering?
Not much, nothing that I can think about. Yeah. Okay, you want to become a medical doctor?
I'm studying,
Or
I'm studying
research?
biomedical engineering. It's like the engineering for medicine.
You know, it's interesting that you said that. I mentioned to you before that I have 4 children. My little son is in the Department of Biomedical Engineering at the Technion.
Okay.
And he is a microscopist. He develops microscopes, but optical microscopes. So he can see what happened in a living cell. He can follow molecules and molecule interaction in living cells. He's very successful. He's exactly like maybe you in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, biomedical, very important, absolutely, very important.
Thank you. Now, I would like to ask the participants if any of the participants have any questions and would like to ask them directly to Professor Dan. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
So hello, my name is Gonçalo. I would like to thank you for your talk. It was very inspirational. I would like to know more about the day that you found out that you will receive the Nobel Prize. How is the procedure when you get the notice and go to Sweden and receive the prize?
You know, that's a very interesting question, because that day, as you can imagine, was changed my life, and it happens in one phone call. I will explain to you exactly what happened that day. Okay, the day was June, or okay, I forget the date. Shame on me. I was working in my office at the Technion on the computer. Well, like scientists, that's what scientists do sometimes. And the day before, they announced the Nobel Prize in Physics. This is how it's done every year. There's a day for physics, and the next day is chemistry. I was told I was a candidate for the Nobel for 30 years, so my friends, I was never interested in it. And when people asked me, why don't you talk about the Nobel? I said, I will talk about Nobel after the Nobel, if I receive it, but never before. So my friends were all physicists, and they nominated me for a Nobel Prize in Physics. And so when the day before was gone and I didn't receive, I said, okay, another year passed by, no problem. So I didn't anticipate to receive Nobel Prize in Chemistry. This is not very wise on my part, because crystallography goes with chemistry traditionally. Okay, so I'm on my computer and I received a phone call, and it was not a cell phone like this. It was a regular phone, and I don't look at the phone and I say, Danny speaking, in Hebrew. מדבר דני. Said, hello, this is the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. Please hold the line. Very important message. And I say, uh-oh. And then they tell me, we are very happy to tell you that you won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for 2011. And some people want to talk to you. And then a man that I know from Sweden, a scientist, is talking to me and said, Danny, congratulations, wonderful, wonderful. And why do they do that? Because on my time was 11 o'clock in the morning. But most of the people that get the Nobel Prize are from the United States. Now, 11 o'clock in the morning, my time is midnight, I don't know, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. And when they call somebody and say, hello, this is a very important message, damn you. So instead, there's a friend. Hey, Roger, wake up. This is Olofsson. I want to tell you something. I'm calling from Sweden, Olofsson from Sweden. So they wake up and then they can tell them. Okay, so they told me, and then I left the computer and I'm sitting there at my desk, looking at the floor in front of me, thinking, oh, and they told me, we will announce it to the world in half an hour. Don't tell anybody. In half an hour, we will announce it. So I sit there and I said, well, I have half an hour that I know, and I know that my life will change in half an hour. I don't know what will happen, but it will change. And I'm alone, and I'm the only one who knows. So I sit there thinking, making scenarios, what's gonna happen? And then I say, oops, I have to call my wife. Don't tell anybody, yes, but I have to stay with my wife for the rest of my life. So, hey, you better call her now. So I called her. She's a professor in university. And I said, are you alone or with a student? She said, I'm sitting with a student. And I said, okay, get rid of her. I have something very important to tell you. I received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Woo! So she tells the students to go away, and she goes immediately to the central computer of the university to see the announcement. She was clever. I tried to see the announcements from my own computer, but of course I couldn't log on. But her main computer could do that, so she saw the announcement. And then she took a taxi to come from her university to my university. Why did she take a taxi? Doesn't she have a car? Of course she has a car. But that day, my car didn't start, so I took her car. So she took a taxi and came. So I'm sitting there, and I know that, okay, I know that now they announce it. I cannot follow it, but I know that it's happening now. And it's quiet, and my room is the last in the corridor. It's a long corridor, and my room is the last, my office. So I sit there, waiting to see, okay, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, very quiet, nothing happens. And then, you know, like the bulls in Pamplona in Spain, boo, big commotion, people run in the corridor, yelling and shouting, and my door opens and pooh, tens of people pour in, they couldn't stand, it was so crowded. And then the celebration started. And then my wife also arrived. This was the beginning. Then the Technion said, the president of the Technion, who also came, said, okay, it's now sometimes 12 o'clock. 2 o'clock we'll make a press conference. 2 o'clock we'll make a press conference. How could they do it in 2 hours? Because the Technion was ready. The Technion was waiting for this moment for 30 years. Everything was ready, you know, like an army that has a plan for every situation. So they were ready. And at 2 o'clock, there was a conference, a press conference. Now that was a very funny event, and it was on television. So I was sitting there, and the president of the Technion, vice president, and so on, and my wife and my son with his son, and so on. And the press conference, and there are photographers. And these new large cameras, you know, they can take 3,000 pictures, each one of them. And every photographer wants to take 3,000 pictures. And I said, why so many? Take 2, take 3, take 10, go home. Okay. And so the master of ceremony says, okay, gentlemen, photographers, now you get out. Now we start the press conference. Nobody moves. A couple of minutes later, okay, gentlemen, please leave. Now we have to start the press conference. Nobody moves. I am cool, but the president of the Technion is agitated. And so I said to him, shall I take control? He said, yes, please take control. So I get up and said, okay, photographers, that's the end of your session. Now you get out. If you want to take more pictures, I will stay here after the press conference and you can come and take more pictures. But now you get out. So they got out. And now the press conference starts and two journalists get up and start to talk simultaneously together. I said, wait a minute. You are now at the Technion. At the Technion, we speak one at a time. Now you. And there was order. And everything went smoothly, everything. So this was the day. And of course, that day and the day after at home, we received bouquets of flowers, 30 bouquets of flowers. We had to borrow vases. Who has 30 vases, big vases for all this, and pots and pans to put the flowers? It was an amazing day for me, but mainly for my family, my children, my grandchildren. And then I took them all to Sweden for the ceremony. Okay.
Thank you for your answer, Marianne.
I think we are now 1 hour into this interview.
Do you have any more time, or are you running late?
So maybe one more question and then we'll call it a day. Okay?
I would like to ask, what was the biggest change you felt after you won the Nobel? So do you think it's easier for you to get recognition for your work since you already have the backing of such a huge prize, or was it something different that you felt was the biggest change?
Okay, turn on your camera. I don't see you. I don't know who is talking. Okay, Mariana. Yes. Please ask the question again for me.
What was the biggest difference you felt after you won the Nobel Prize?
Okay. You see, I received many very important prizes before the Nobel. The Wolf Prize is the most important one I received before the Nobel, but also many other, about 10 large prizes, world prizes before the Nobel. But the Nobel Prize is the final recognition of the scientific community. Hey, you are number one. Okay, this is the medal. Okay, before you were a major player and you were number two in many competitions, but now you are number one. So this is the feeling. Okay, sitting, like in the Olympics, there's number two. Number two is wonderful, right? Amazing. So I was number two many times, but now number one. So, and this is the feeling. The world, the science world, the people that nominated me, the people that recommended me, the committee that chose me, they all decided that this year I am number one in chemistry. And this is a wonderful feeling. This is okay, world. I liked you before, I like you now, and I appreciate the honor that you have bestowed on me. This is a wonderful feeling.
Okay, so thank you. So I think that now we'll end this interview. I would just like to say that it was a pleasure to have Professor Shechtman with us on this virtual session, and perhaps in another occasion we'll have more time to discuss other subjects of physics, chemistry, or engineering, or even economics or culture. We wish you had more time to talk about your findings or other of the scientific researches you have conducted, but hopefully we'll have other opportunities to do so. I would like to thank on behalf of the Students' Union of Instituto Superior Técnico and for every student that are present here, and for you have taken some of your precious time to be with us on this special day, the World Engineering Day.
Thank you very much, Mariana, for inviting me. And I wish you all great success in your scientific work. And you know the secret, try to be number one in your field.
Thank you.
Is very simple, right? That's it.
Okay.
Have a good day, everybody. Enjoy your weekend.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.